Hello there, and welcome back. It's great to have you with us as we explore another interesting little corner of how our minds work. We're going to talk about something many of us have wondered about: introverts. What does that word actually mean to you? Maybe you picture someone who's a bit of a wallflower at parties, kind of quiet and lost in their own thoughts. Or perhaps you think of that kid in your class who rarely spoke up, just taking it all in. But guess what? There's so much more to being an introvert than just how much someone talks or likes to socialize. It's not just about being quiet. And here's a fun fact: there isn't just one way to be an introvert. There are actually different types of introverts. Who knew, right? It's pretty fascinating when you start to look into it. So, at its heart, being an introvert means you need some time alone to recharge your batteries. If you spend too much time around lots of people or in busy places, you can start to feel really drained and a bit frazzled. Think of it like your phone needing to be plugged in after a long day. Introverts need to plug into some quiet time to get their energy back. Some really interesting research from a psychology professor actually breaks this down further, showing there are mainly 4 different flavors of introverts. This is super helpful because it reminds us that introversion isn't just one single thing. It's more like a spectrum, with lots of different shades. These types help us see how different introverts can be, and that being introverted is a really varied experience. It helps us get past those old stereotypes. So, let's get into these 4 types and see what they're all about. First up, let's talk about the social introvert. Now, social introvert might sound a bit like a puzzle. How can you be social and an introvert? Well, it's totally a thing. Social introverts are interesting because they can actually be the most outgoing of the bunch in certain situations, but they also really guard their private time. They're not usually shy or super anxious in social settings. In fact, they can genuinely have a good time being around people, chatting, and joining in. But here's the catch: even if it's fun, being social uses up their energy. If they're out for too long, or go to too many things without a break, they'll start to feel that mental tiredness creep in, and that's their cue that they need some quiet time. While social introverts absolutely need their alone time to feel good and recharge, they also really value having a few close friends they can count on and be totally themselves with. It's usually with this small group of trusted buddies that they're at their most social and relaxed. If you met a social introvert when they were hanging out with their best friends, you might even think they're an extrovert because they can be so lively. But even then, they're pretty selective about who they open up to deeply. They save their innermost thoughts and feelings for those few people who are truly in their inner circle. Next, we have the thinking introvert. This is where that image of the daydreamer really fits. Thinking introverts aren't against socializing, they can do it just fine. But they often choose not to, simply because their own inner world is so captivating and busy. They spend a lot of time lost in thought, daydreaming, exploring ideas, and imagining all sorts of things. To people who don't know them well, they might seem a bit distant or like they're not paying attention. But really, their minds are just buzzing with an internal movie or a fascinating puzzle they're working on. Thinking introverts are also incredibly introspective. They spend a lot of time looking inward and figuring out their own feelings and thoughts. This means they're often very self-aware and understand their emotions pretty deeply. Sometimes, other people might find it a little tricky to connect with a thinking introvert on a really deep level. It's not because the thinking introvert is unfriendly, it's more that their way of thinking can be quite unique and complex. They'd often rather stay in their own head, exploring their thoughts, than take the time and energy to try and explain every little detail to someone else. It's like their mind is a fascinating book they're constantly reading. Then there's the anxious introvert. Do you know anyone who replays conversations in their head, wondering if they said the right thing or if they made a weird impression? Or maybe you do this yourself. Anxious introvert is a good description, but it's also helpful to think of them as shy introverts sometimes, just to be clear that this is about personality, not an anxiety disorder, which is a different thing altogether. Anxious introverts really, truly love their solitude. Even when they're with close friends, they might still feel a background hum of wanting to be alone where they can fully relax. New social situations, or big groups of people they don't know, can make them feel super uncomfortable and self-conscious. They tend to overthink how they're behaving when they're in public, analyzing their actions and worrying about what others think. It can be pretty tiring to be in their head sometimes during social moments. It's really important here to remember the difference between being an anxious introvert and having something like social anxiety disorder. While anyone can experience an anxiety disorder, if you find that you're avoiding social situations you need or want to be in because you get strong physical symptoms, like your heart racing, shaking, or feeling sick, that's more than just personality. In those cases, it's always a good idea to chat with a doctor or mental health professional. Finally, let's look at the restrained introvert. You could call this your classic, more reserved type of introvert. Restrained introverts generally feel a bit uneasy if they're rushed into things, especially social plans, without enough time to get used to the idea. They are naturally thoughtful and reserved, and they usually aren't big fans of sudden changes or surprises. They'll often go out and socialize if they've known about it for a while and have had time to prepare themselves mentally. But if they had their absolute preference, they'd often rather be chilling out by themselves, maybe watching their favorite show, reading a great book, or doing something calming like yoga. Restrained introverts find a lot of comfort in their routines. They like knowing what to expect. They might also be a bit slow to get going in the mornings, needing some time to fully wake up and ease into the day. They really do best when they have a predictable rhythm and plenty of warning before things change, so they can adjust at their own pace. So, you've heard about these 4 types. What if you feel like an introvert, but none of these descriptions felt like a perfect fit? That's completely normal. You might be what's called an ambivert. That's someone who has a bit of both introversion and extroversion in them, and they can kind of switch between the two depending on how they feel or what's going on. Or maybe you're just an introvert who has a unique mix of these different traits. These labels are just tools to help us understand ourselves and others a little bit better. They're not meant to be strict boxes. Getting to know your own personality, wherever you land on that introvert-extrovert line, is a really cool journey. When you understand yourself better, it's easier to tell people what you need and why you are the way you are. And that understanding can make a huge difference in your relationships with friends, family, and even coworkers, leading to fewer misunderstandings and just getting along better. Did this give you some food for thought about introverts? Do you feel like you can spot these different types a bit more easily now? Maybe you even thought of other ways introversion shows up, or you recognized yourself or someone you know in these descriptions. If you're an introvert, which type or combination of traits felt most like you? Feel free to share this with someone you know who's an introvert. It could be a neat way for them to learn a bit more about themselves too. If you found this helpful or interesting, a quick like on the video would be amazing, and you can always subscribe for more content like this. Thanks so much for hanging out and thinking through this with us. We'll catch you in the next one.